Hi, this is your host Sapna Bhartiya and welcome to TFR Let's Talk. And today we have with us Rich Burroughs, Senior Developer Advocate at Loft Labs. Rich, it's great to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Tell me a bit about your background because this is the first time we are hosting you, so I would love to know a bit about you.
I have a somewhat common origin story, I think, for a lot of people in tech. I started off working as a systems administrator in the 1990s. I think a lot of people are in that situation. The tech industry was really taking off with the internet. My first job was an internet provider, as a sysadmin. Since then, I've worked at lots of different places, and I've worked a lot in the space of what used to be called application administration. So I was doing a lot of deployments and app configuration, troubleshooting problems more in that application space. And then I got to a point where I was doing SRE work and I just got kind of burned out on it. I'd been on call for many years and I felt like I needed to shift to something else. And developer advocacy really is a great fit for me, I think, because there's that community feel, which I really love, but it's also technical too.
If I ask you, just out of curiosity, what exactly is the role and responsibility of a developer advocate? Are you a devil's advocate? We talk about, hey, you should use this technology, you should not use, why are you using it? Or you are more or less like kind of, evangelist, where you're talking about. So I just want to understand what exactly is that role for you?
The real answer is that it depends. So different companies look at this role in very different ways, but usually it's a combination of doing some things like writing and speaking and maybe podcasting and streaming and giving people in the community ideas about how they can use the tools better. That's a big chunk of it. And then often another big part of it is interacting with folks in the community to get an idea of what their experiences are and help them use the tools better and also get feedback, to the folks who are building the product so they know like what kind of stumbling blocks people are running into, what kind of new features the community wants, things like that.
And looking at your own career graph and the breadth of experience you have, what made you interested in Loft? Why did you join the company?
So it's funny because when I started looking this last time, I've been with the company for about 6 months now. I was not looking at early stage companies. I had been through the ringer a few times with early stage companies and was thinking that I wanted to go somewhere bigger. And then Lucas, the CEO, reached out to me and I took a look at what they were building. And I was honestly really fascinated because a lot of the things that they were addressing were the problems that I knew that people in the Kubernetes community had, right? These are things that I heard people talking about a lot, problems with multi-tenancy especially. These are things that people are banging their shins on a lot. And the folks at Loft were building really smart solutions to these problems. So that was really what drew me into it. And then I met Lucas and we were very much on the same page in terms of what we thought, this role should be doing and where we thought the company should be heading.
Let's change the gear and just totally talk about open source. Talk about your own kind of exposure to open source. What value do you see of open source in today's kind of cloud-native world? Because more and more things are becoming as a service where we also talk about low code, no code, so that you don't have to worry too much about actually investing time in developing something, just go to market as soon as you can.
I started working with open source clear back in the 90s. Like I said, that was my first job as a system administrator. I was in the Linux community before that even, and learning about Linux. And so that was sort of my gateway to open source. And since then, I've been part of many other communities. I was part of the Puppet community for a while and then ended up working there. And that was actually very influential on me in terms of my views of open source. There's kind of a push and pull for a company that's making open source tools and a commercial product. And a lot of that comes around like what you productize, what you put in the paid version. And a lot of times those decisions are things like RBAC and SSO and things that companies kind of have to have if they're really going to operate this software securely and at scale. And so those kinds of questions of, you know, what you give to the open source users and what you give to the commercial users are a really big one. And I think it's something that a lot of companies struggle with. And you see companies coming out with, you know, multiple attempts at trying to monetize this popular open source software that they have even.
What is the importance of open source at Loft Lab? What are the projects they are involved with? What are the projects they're consuming? So talk about the open source story at Loft.
We really do believe in open source. We have several projects right now. DevSpace is the oldest one. That's a project that lets developers build workflows for writing code and deploying it to Kubernetes clusters. There's several other projects. Kiosk is a Kubernetes security-related project. We've got another project called JS Policy that lets you write policies for Kubernetes in JavaScript. And probably our most kind of cutting edge popular project right now is vCluster, which allows you to run virtual Kubernetes clusters. And I think that these tools, some of them are actually built into our product, right? So we had virtual clusters in Loft before vCluster existed. And what they did is they took the building blocks that were there in the commercial product and turned it into an open source project. And I love that approach. You know, by the time that open source people started touching it, a lot of folks had already been using vCluster. And it means that the project is already proven. It's got a lot of the sort of edges taken off of it, you know, that you might get with a brand new open source project.
You earlier talked about one of the rules of a developer advocate is also podcast. I feel that messaging, communication, education is also a very big role, and podcast is one of the many mediums that you can use. So you also have a podcast, if I'm not wrong, and it has a, you know, kind of funny and cute name, Cube Cuddle. So talk about the podcast and talk about who got the idea for the name.
Cube Cuddle, if you're not big into the Kubernetes space, you might not get the joke, but there's a tool that a lot of people that you use very frequently with Kubernetes called kubectl, and some people pronounce that cuddle, so they call it Cube Cuddle, and that's where I got the name for the podcast. But you know, I really just wanted to engage with friends that I had in the community. I had done some podcasting previously. I knew it was a lot of fun to interview people. I enjoyed talking with people and getting to know them better. And I was actually at the last physical KubeCon that happened in San Diego, and I was looking around, and there were so many friends that I had there who were pretty influential people in the community. And I thought, hey, you know, I could tap into this group of people that I know and interview them. And I think it would be a lot of fun for people to listen to. I've really focused a lot more on the people than the software. So a lot of what I ask people about is kind of their journey in technology and in the Kubernetes community. And we talk about that a lot more than the tools, but we do talk about tools some too.
Rich, thank you so much for taking time out today and not only talk about your own journey, but also the importance of open source at Loft and also the role of developer advocate. And I would love to have you back on the show. I'm sure we'll be seeing each other a lot in the coming months, but thanks for your time today.
Thanks so much. This was very fun, and I would definitely like to come back.